Hello everybody and welcome back to Daytona for the opening round of the 2025 IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. It's the Rolex 24 at Daytona. Qualifying was earlier on today and we've now had all the running orders ready to go. We know exactly who's going to be where. We're getting set for the free practice 2 session, 90 minutes ahead of us. We are slightly delayed with the start time after the dramatic Mazda MX-5 race, which ended with a fire, so the track is needing to be cleaned a little bit. The session will start as soon as possible, but we're going to transfer over. You'll have live timing graphics available as well with radio commentary from IMSA Radio. So we'll hand over now, and Johnny Palmer is in the commentary booth. Here it comes, the second practice session, and your timings now are syncing up and getting ready to go. We're all set then, ready for 90 minutes. When that green light goes on, let's head down to Johnny Palmer now.
The event at the Roar before the 24, they had a wet session, and actually the Proton Porsche, the Mustang sampling car, was very, very strong indeed. In fact, the two privateer Porsches, but both the Proton and the JDC car were both very strong indeed in the wet conditions. So actually they'll be doing the wet rain dance. That's maybe what we might see in this session, is the JDC Miller team and the Proton team actually on the pit lane doing an actual rain dance.
It's possible. And yeah, there are some crews that will feel that they've got the better setup in that regard, but nobody really likes the in-betweeny stuff, which is what we have at the moment. And parts of pit road, particularly the concrete section, are like ice now. So if you are making stops during free practice 2, all of the guys looking after the car will have to be cautious about a car coming in at speed and whether it is going to stop in the correct place. That will all be considered. Cars now being released from behind the wall to their pit stalls for the weekend, still as soon as possible. So, and the time's not affected, so it's still 90-minute session that we're going to enjoy. And it is very, very busy to come out from the infield garages to assemble in the line to get you through the queue there, the gap in the wall, and enable cars to head out to the right positions. Quite a bit of choreography here to switch from one segment of the weekend to back to the main show, if you like. We already had very entertaining qualifying sessions for both Michelin Pilot Challenge earlier on and these cars. And I always have to remind myself how early on in the weekend qualifying takes place for both, in fact, because there's a full day tomorrow. We're not racing until the day after that, but the grid is already set.
Well, actually it's later than it was last year, because last year the qualifying order was set at the Roar before the 24 weekend. So we actually came into race week knowing who was on pole position in each class. It was a really interesting qualifying session. We actually had a great time watching qualifying and listening to John and Ryan on the PA, but we watched from the International Horseshoe and then a little bit up by the Kink. It was pretty chilly, some Hardy fans out there enjoying it, and thanks to our colleague, the wonderful Shea Adam, we got a stat, didn't we, in the corridor there? 4 brand new IMSA pole sitters in terms of drivers. So
Dries quite a lot going on at the time, so I missed that. She may have spoken directly to me with that statistic, and it went straight over my head, so I'm glad you were there listening.
Well, I caught it. As it went over your head, I caught it. So yes, Dries Van Toor, first time IMSA pole sitter. Also Dan Goldberg, great run from him in the United Autosports LMP2. In GTD Pro, Mike Rockenfeller, you think, is he an IMSA first time pole sitter? Surely not. But in the new era of IMSA, if you like, from 2014 onwards, he is. He will have had class pole positions in the American Le Mans series when he raced with Alex Job, Porsche, etc. So yeah, it's all go. And then of course for Elliott Skier, it's a surprise actually to see a Porsche on pole position in GTD, given the quite hefty balance of performance hit they took after the roar, but clearly there is pace in that 992 GT3R.
That's Peter Mackay. I'm Johnny Palmer. This is the Full Performance Global Broadcast Centre. And Jordan Peppers now chatting to Ryan Marine down in the pits.
He is, and his teammate Andrea Caldarelli just told me I don't even have to ask him a question, and he's still going to talk for minutes on end. Is this true? I just asked a question. I failed.
Oh, yeah, I mean, what a good place to be in. Lovely, sunny Florida. Perfect weather out here tonight for a bit of night practice. Yeah, the plan was to scrub tires, but I don't think in this weather we're going to do any of that.
No, probably not. We've got Andrea getting in on the interview as well. What do you think joining the FAF team? It's their first time running this Lamborghini, but they've been right up to speed right away, going back to the Roar last week. Seems like they're pretty quick studies.
Yeah, I mean, when I heard for the first time from Lamborghini that FAF is making the switch to Lambo, I was like, really? Such a team? No, jokes aside, what a great group of guys, honestly. From the moment they got the car, I think it was super late in December, all the guys went throughout the holidays, basically took Christmas off and New Year's, and the rest of it they were grinding away and just produced what an amazing car out here. So a big credit to them, a big credit to Lamborghini for supporting them and bringing such an incredible team into the fold. And yeah, super happy with how the weekend's gone so far. Andrea did a great lap in qualifying. P5 I think is a good place to start, and yeah, let's see what happens in the race.
I've seen you and your teammates around the paddock a little bit over the last week or so, and it seems like you guys are having a lot of fun. Andrea's a great character. We know James Hinchcliffe is as well. What is the camaraderie like with this group here so far? Have you, I mean, I know you know Andrea, but how about the rest of the group? Did you know many of them before?
Yeah, I mean, Marco, Andrea, and myself obviously shared a lot of cars together and had fun doing so, and James was a perfect fit. He slotted right in. Super quick guy, great character, brought some good North American humor along from just north of the border there. Yeah, just having a great time. And I think when you go motor racing and have fun doing it, for sure the results are going to come.
How do you strike that balance between enjoying the experience but also taking the task at hand as seriously as is required?
Yeah, I mean, the Raw and the 24, the whole process of it is quite a big build-up, very intense, especially for this group of guys getting used to the car for the first time. We have a lot to work on with the new way of doing and managing the BOP with the torque sensors, so a lot of work's going on behind the scenes, and it's just an incredible group of guys. When we're here at the track and the session's underway and the day's going ahead, we're working really hard, 110% digging through the data, seeing what we can find, because we know when we saw how close it was in qualifying, every tenth matters, even every half a tenth. So bear in mind, we've done now 8 hours of driving on track and just trying to fine-tune everything to come down to that little last limit. It's been intense, but when we go to the restaurants at night time, we can bring out all the racing stories, all the jokes, all the fun, and yeah, just a great way to kickstart the year.
Jordan Pepper joining us, still waiting to get the session started. A little bit of a delay to get going. But you mentioned the torque sensor. I'm curious, does that change the way you drive the car? Does it change the feel of the car? Or is that all just on the technical side?
Yeah, throughout motorsport in general, some years we get a new spec of tire that's got to change the philosophy of the way we set the car up to get the maximum out of it. Now we've got the torque sensor era. It's changed a lot, obviously, the way we drive to maximize the performance and to bring out the full potential over one lap, because it's not just about each corner and trying to maximize that, but it's about capitalizing on the whole lap's performance as well as the whole stint and just the way we manage it. For sure, it's different, but it's a new challenge. It's the same for everyone up and down the grid, and we just see who's going to do a better job come Sunday and see who gets the Rolex at the end of it.
I'll close with this. Another change from last year to this is the way that the two GT classes will be treated, with class splits and things of that nature. Is that something you look forward to, not having the two classes as mixed up as they have been in previous years?
I mean, IMSA is all about the show. It brings good action. It brings a lot of fun for the fans to watch, and for sure that split, some people might be against it because of that, but personally I'm a fan of it. You know, it's nothing worse than going late in the race, trying to race a competitor for podium position or win, and you got to mix it up with other guys in another class racing for the same thing. So I think I'm happy about it. GT class racing is always going to be close no matter which way you look at it, and I think the class split's just going to limit the damage that happens over the last few years and probably just encourage more cleaner, harder racing for positions that actually matter, which I'm a fan for it, and I think also when we look at GT in general, we got the Pro class, but we also have the GTD class, which has AMs and stuff. And for those guys to be bullied by some pro drivers sometimes, I don't think it's quite fun on them. So the split, I'm a fan of it, and I think it's going to produce greater racing across both classes and obviously, hopefully, less crashes.
Thank you for the insight, and try and stay warm tonight, all right?
You too, man. Ciao.
Some excellent responses there, I thought, from Jordan Pepper, because this was a discussion that you and I, Peter Mackay, were having on the journey here about the change within IMSA as far as the GT3 derived categories are concerned. They're called GTD, GT Daytona in this championship, but adopting the torque sensors that are used in the World Endurance Championship and championships like the European Le Mans Series as well. It's a big job, first of all, to change it from a standard or an old-school GTD car to the modern-day version. But also, I think Jordan was saying it doesn't actually affect the performance as such. You don't have to adjust your driving style because the torque sensors are on it, but because all this stuff's being sent back, the telemetry, constantly to race control next door, you have to drive the car differently to make sure you're in the correct parameter window.
And I think in anything in motorsport, wherever there's a variable, there's an opportunity to beat competitors.
Yes.
If there's something that's in your control, it means it's in the control of everyone you're racing against.
Yes.
So there's always an edge. And whether the time and the resource put into it is worth it, or if it comes back, if you get the you get the value and the reward back for that time put in, that's another question. But clearly the amount that a lot of the teams and drivers are talking about it clearly is a very important thing, and it's part of the all part of the mix. Now, given that we're going to have we're starting with a lightly damp track.
The session is green.
The session is green, yeah. So we're starting with a lightly damp track. It looks like the rain has gone off, or it's certainly lightened at least. It may get lighter, and it may get clearer later on in the session. So let's see. I mean, to be honest, there's a huge number of takers. I'm surprised how many takers we've got early on here at the start of this session.
Let's give everyone a chance to get out onto the track and to put some heat into these very, very cold tyres on a greasy road surface, and head to Joe Bradley, who's with the Gradient Racing crew with their 66 car, one of their drivers, Joe.
Yeah, a new car for Gradient Racing with the Ford Mustang, but Joey Hand, not a new car for Joey Hand. I mean, you've been pretty much from the beginning with regards to developing this car.
Yeah, I have. This is definitely not a new car to me. Always exciting to be back here at Daytona. Excited to be back in Ford Mustang. I mean, from the first days of this car, I sat in it and we were tack welding the steering column in, and I was involved early days, like where to put the dash and all that stuff. So, I mean, and then quickly Harry and Dirk and everybody else got involved. So it wasn't just me, but I definitely was the first guy in it. And so I've seen a lot of it, and I think being here with Gradient, I'm able to just help out a little bit. I mean, obviously having Harry here also, we can really, I think, just speed up the learning curve for him, and just help him out a little bit. Great team, super excited to be here with Gradient. They're awesome. I've got a couple friends here. One of my crew chief on this car was my car chief in 1999 when I won the Formula Mazda Championship. So we go a long ways back. So it's been fun so far for sure.
I think as well, Joey, where you can help the most, and from experience, when you get a new car into the team, it's that Bible-esque manual that comes with all the intricacies of the systems. You can speed that process massively for Gradient moving across to a Ford.
Yeah, especially when I drive the car, so I know how to drive it. But that's just one part of it, like you say. So I know a lot about the things that we've done that may have worked or didn't work, and I can tell them all that stuff quickly. So it's a lot different than just being a new team with a new car and then not having anybody that ever drove it before. So for sure, I'm doing my best to help these guys out and like you said, speed that up. But honestly, a really strong team. They don't need a lot of help, but at least when they say, hey, did you guys ever do this? I can say, yeah, or nay. But like I said, just always fun to start the year here at Daytona. Honestly, I haven't really felt my toes for 3 days. I wish it would warm up a little bit, but Very, very cool to have my buddy Harry back over here, and my new teammates Till and Tatiana. Super good people and super nice to drive with.
This stage of a 24-hour weekend, everything is possible, isn't it? And what a start, GTD Pro with a Mustang on pole. Does that inspire you guys running the same car effectively?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, to see Rocky and Freddie be up there and going to lead the GT pack to the green. I mean, it wasn't me in the car, but I'm proud of that. I know we were involved in that, and I feel like all of us had something to do with that. And so all my crew members down there that I know and love, they've done a great job this week, and super happy for them also to get that front row lockout. And yeah, absolutely. Their cars are fast, it means our cars are fast. It's the same thing. It's the same car, right? So when I sit in this car, I can't tell which car I'm in, except when I step out and look at the colors. So, I think what our plan here is to make sure that everybody's comfortable in the car, make sure we have a good long run car, and it's no secret. Everybody knows you just got to run this thing for 20 hours, 22 hours to keep it clean, keep passing off to your teammate. And hope you get a chance to race from the top 10 in the last couple hours.
One last quick question, Joey. It's probably not got a quick answer. How different is that car that we see tonight to what we saw at this event last year?
It's basically the same. Yeah, it's really. Yeah, I mean, it's the same car. It's just a newer serial number. Yeah, I mean, it's same stuff. Like I said, I sit in there and it feels like the same thing. So we're even using Harry's seat. His insert that was in those cars down there, and so I mean, Multimatic and Ford Performance doing a great job, pumping out these cars for customers. I mean, this is a big part of this Ford Mustang GT3 program is the customer part of it, and so I'm actually excited to be able to do this part also as a Ford guy and a Multimatic guy, to be able to come in here and help this program learn quicker, like we've been talking about. I mean, it's fun to me. Number one thing is I come here to race. I come here to win. But my second favorite thing is help develop things, and especially with this car, but also, I'm helping this team develop with this car. So, like I said, really a great program here. They've welcomed me like I've been here for years, and so we're gonna do some cool things here, for sure.
As ever, Joey, always great to talk to you. Great insight. Thanks, man. And you have been here a long time, 20 years I've been interviewing you.
Hello, sir.
All right, mate.
Garage area. I decided to take a quick stroll just to see who had decided to stay in rather than venture out. And I can tell you that just about the entire GTP field is still in the garage, and it does not look like many of them are planning on coming out anytime soon. For instance, the Wayne Taylor Racing team is taking this opportunity to do some driver change practice, but in the relative warmth of their garages. A couple of other updates to follow up on. Remember, we had the issue for the one BMW in the qualifying session from Team RLL that came to a halt. I believe that was the number 25, and the initial report was that it could have been an MGU issue. They were still chasing the exact cause of that problem that cost them the qualifying session, but does not look like that car is coming out imminently, nor will the number 5 from Proton Competition, that Porsche 963 that had the suspension failure in the practice earlier today. That did not take part in the qualifying session, and right now don't see any suspension attached to the front of that tub, and that car is in various states of disrepair, I think it's safe to say, at this stage. Now, keep in mind, this night practice is crucial for any team that has a bronze-graded driver as part of their lineup. They are required to get drive time done in the night, but of course, none of these GTP cars this year are carrying any bronze drivers, so if they don't feel like they can learn anything in these wet and cold conditions, they might just elect to stay in the garage here, and it looks like many of them, at least thus far, that appears to be the plan.
That's Ryan Marine has been doing some sterling work to get to the bottom of the stories from earlier on in the day, earlier on in the weekend. And prior to that, Joe Bradley, who is at Gradient Racing, talking to Joey Hand. I just wanted to fill you in with the teammates that Joey was talking about, because he referred to them by first name only, as you would do if you were a driver in that team. Harry was Harry Ticknall. We actually chatted to him earlier on. That was in free practice 1 from memory. And then Till and Tati, Till Bechtelsheimer and Tatiana Calderon, who actually raced in the same season. I think it was 2013, the 2013 European Formula 3 Championship as Harry Tincknell many years ago. But they both raced equivalent machinery, but for different teams. So are back racing together again this weekend. What have I missed on the timing screen, Peter Mackay, whilst we were catching up there? There's only one GTP car, lonely at the top.
Yeah, that's the JDC Miller Motorsports number 85 Porsche 963, also known as the Yellow Submarine. We all live in a Porsche 963, is the theme song of it.
It's good.
1 minute 47.461 for Bryce Aaron. Now that's about 11 to 12 seconds off the kind of ultimate pace. So that gives you an idea of how far off the track is right now after that little rain shower. And, air temperature is only 7 degrees Celsius. Track temperature is 10 degrees Celsius. So it's definitely not optimum conditions. But I think the value of this session could get higher as it progresses, because if the track dries up and the times improve and what have you, in the last half an hour or so could be some really good, valuable, as this case, as the name suggests, night practice.
Yes.
And it isn't a surprise to see so many bronze drivers out there for the reason that Ryan rightly said, they need to get a couple of laps in so that they can actually start the race full stop. But also for them, the track time and the experience is so important. For somebody like a Joey Hand or a Jordan Pepper, who we spoke to earlier on, they're seasoned pros. They're absolutely they don't necessarily need that extra time. They know their steeds and they know the circuit inside and out. But for bronze graded drivers, some of them might have been out the car for a while. Some of them, it might be first time here in the car or first time at Daytona even. So this is where getting that track time in can be important. And I think we will see the times getting quicker and quicker all the time. In fact, Colton Herta has gone to the top overall in an LMP2 car. 145.2. He's actually gone 2.2 seconds quicker than Bryce Aaron did in the number 85 JDC Miller Porsche. It's just come into the pits, actually. It's just in by the JDC garage at the moment. And just as I said, it's going to get quicker. The rain's come back on.
Typical, but we've seen that many times before. Are we in a format right now, a conditional format, as in the LMP2 car is actually just the better car to have? Yes, the GTP has more power, but in order to lay that down, is the Oreca slightly the more stable platform whilst we deal with these greasy conditions, and changeable with that as well? Tricky to be a bronze driver if you are out doing your laps in this opening segment, because conditions are by no means stable. However, that might be useful for data when we get to the race, because rarely is it going to be the same from the start of your stint to the end, even if we don't get any of the wet stuff. Spike the Dragon, the number 99 car, is up on the high banking now and about to complete another lap. It is PJ Hyatt at the wheel of that Oreca LMP2 07. Have you got concerns in the distance? Just got the binos out on something potentially happening?
Not a concern per se, but interesting to see what this session can be used for. The 65 Ford Multimatic Motorsport GTD Pro car, which qualified second behind its teammate, came into its pit box and they changed the whole front bumper basically. Now, that could be simply for practice, that could be because there's an issue underneath. They actually went and cleared the grille out a little bit, and it could just be things, practicing how to change a rear clip or a front clip quickly. Now, there's lots you can do. There's always something you can do to prepare, even practice going 3 wide on the banking with 3 GT cars, 2 Ferraris, and the number 48 Paul Miller BMW going around over the top there with Max Hesse on board. Of course, for a great example, Max Hesse, very experienced driver, knows how to handle these sorts of conditions very well from his time at the Nürburgring, but he's brand new to IMSA. This is new. This is a totally new paddock. The car is relatively new. Yes, he's won in it so far, but IMSA's new, Daytona's fairly new. So, you know, this is valuable for him as well.
And that considered, even more daring from the German to be going on the high side of 2 other GT cars, and like you say, 3 abreast. You can do that on the banking, and we've seen it several times amongst different categories, because the slower cars in drivers' briefings and things like that generally told to stay left on the natural racing line, and then the quicker car can go up high close to the safer barrier through speedway turns 1, 2, 3 and 4 in fact, and it's always the job of the quicker car to try and find a way by. Glorious sound of one of the 2 Triarsi Competizione Ferrari 296s. Full chat there before hitting the brakes into the Le Mans chicane on the back stretch. And
it's a
the Cheetah car, isn't it? So yes, the 023, the 23 car. Now, are there 2 effectively 23 cars? No, there aren't. So you could call it the 23 car or the 023 car more accurately.
But we do have a 021 and a 21.
Okay.
We've got a Triarsi 021 Ferrari, and we've got a 21 AF Corsa Ferrari. And Ferrari have got an amazing presence here. 8 cars in GTD, 1 in GTD Pro and 7 in GTD. And they've got their factory drivers pretty much evenly spread across all of them. They've basically got 1 factory driver in pretty much every car. So Alessio Rivera, for example, he's a Ferrari Works driver. He's in there in the 023. In the 021, you've got James Calado, multiple world champion with the Ferrari brand and overall winner at Le Mans, and various others spread out across the entry list. And that's really important for Ferrari. I mean, for them, I'm sure they'll be absolutely delighted to have 8 customer teams competing in this event. There's no works car. Yes, they've got works drivers, but there is no works car. Unlike, say, the Ford Multimatic cars, for example, those are works cars. The Vasser Sullivan Lexus, for example, is more or less works cars. So I'm sure Ferrari are delighted to see that customer demand.
I'm also looking for other potential number clashes or confusion. For instance, the Heart of Racing team Aston Martin, the Roman De Angelis, Roscon, Alex Riberas and Marco Sorensen car. That is obviously because it's an Aston Martin 007, but bear in mind there is also a Car 7 in the GTP class, which is the Porsche Penske Motorsport 963. So we may get a little confused between 7 and 007, let's hope not. And then there's a 04 and a 4. The 04 runs in the LMP2 class, that's the CrowdStrike Racing by APR Orica, and the 4 car is a GTD Pro car, the second of the Corvette Racing Z06s. The number system here, I get why, for instance, Aston want to do it that way, and Triarsi obviously have a focal point on 021, 023, but then you've got other numbers that are exactly the same number without the zeros in front of them. So when it gets to 2 and 3 in the morning, I'm going to be tripping over that all over the place.
But if you call it beforehand, then it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Exactly. It's
yeah,
absolutely
I've
fine.
admitted to my mistake before I've made it.
Exactly. But then I know what's going to happen when I get to 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to think I'm Sean Connery, of course, and I'll be like 007 Marco Sorensen.
I can't wait for that.
Well, yeah. And that's probably when you're going to get a lot of groans. But I've said it now, so it's fine.
It's perfect. Yeah, it's fine. You've created the
cleared.
Excuse, and therefore we are automatically out of it. Speaking of the 04 car, George Kurtz, he's now in that car. Not convinced he did the time necessarily.
No, it was Herta.
It was Colton Herta. Oh, you mentioned it at the time, yes. So the 143.945 takes that car to the top, and George Kurtz has just taken it over as we head back to pit lane and Joe Bradley.
I'm in the EO pit where the 99, the EO LMP2 entry with PJ Hyde at the wheel, just gone through the Le Mans chicane, quite harmless. I'm with his teammate Johnny Edgar, who I'm standing next to, and I feel very, very old because I remember this kid in a kart at Rowra in Cumbria. Johnny, this is a far cry from Rowra in Cumbria, Rowra kart track. However, the weather's very similar.
Yeah, obviously it's very different to home, but I feel like I brought the weather with me. This is something I'm pretty familiar with.
Now, you were very firmly on that karting single-seater route, the ladder of progression, and for the last couple of years you've kind of digressed and gone in a different way. Here you are in sports cars. We love having you here, driver like yourself. What made that change? What made that change in direction?
Obviously I think the single-seater route is, everyone wants to get to F1, but then when that becomes apparent it's not going to happen. I think sports cars obviously is getting bigger and bigger, and it's something I've always watched. So Daytona last year was my first sports car race, so it was a pretty big shock as it's my first one. Obviously a massive grid and a lot to learn, but the last season I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to learning more this year.
And so coming here, your second Daytona 24 hours, tell me, how in your head are you different in any way from last year?
Well, last year I didn't have much time in an LMP2 car before coming here. Traffic management was totally new. Kind of driving on cold tyres straight out of the pits, all of that was brand new to me, so I've kind of had a season to learn that. Everything's way more familiar. Things on driver changes, working with teammates, just everything I'm a lot more familiar with after a season, so I think, it's kind of, I can focus more on just driving rather than all the other things aside of that.
You got to grips with the LMP2 pretty well. European Le Mans Series champion, I'm being told in my ear. That must have been exciting for you.
Yeah, last year was a good year in ELMS, winning the championship with AO by TF, and then I'm lucky to join AO in IMSA for the endurance round this year, and I'm really looking forward to it.
I mean, LMP2, for me, when I see LMP, I love LMP2. It's kind of pure. You know, there's a driver, there's a gearbox, a paddle shift, an engine, none of those silly, complicated electronics. Is it kind of like that from a driver's point of view as well?
Yeah, it's a pretty simple car to drive. Obviously, we have a little bit of TC that we can adjust, but that doesn't change too much. And then, other than that, it's quite a simple car to drive. Pretty easy to kind of jump in and get up to speed with. Coming from single seaters, it was very familiar to me, and it's a very enjoyable car to drive and race.
It's got a lot of aero on it as well. As a young driver, was that the hardest bit to get your head around? Just, like you hear drivers talking about when they first get in, it's like, wow, how fast can I corner? Was that a similar experience for yourself?
Yeah, coming from F3, it was, I'd say, a similar level of cornering speed, so it was just pretty natural and an easier transition for me coming from an F3 car to LMP2. I'd say the lap time and speed's relatively similar, so that was one of the easier bits. The harder part was cold tyres out of pits, driver changes, traffic, all of those things. Obviously, much longer races, racing over 24 hours rather than 40 minutes.
You like the team aspect of it?
Yeah, I really enjoy working with a team. Obviously, there's always compromises to be made between teammates, but I enjoy working with teammates, and you're always trying to help each other, whereas even when you have teammates in other series, you'd want to beat each other, whereas the better you can make a teammate, or the better teammate can make you, it just helps the team. So I really like working with people, and I'm lucky this year to have 3 great teammates to be driving with.
Johnny, it's great to talk to you. I'm going to make a point of talking to you during the race. Malcolm and Marion will be very proud of you, I pretty much know that. Let's head up to the pit lane where Ryan's got somebody else.
I do indeed. Thanks, Joe. I've got Zachary Robichon from the Heart of Racing Aston Martin team preparing for his second 24-hour race of 2025. You already raced at the Michelin 24 Hours of Dubai, and of course you're heading down under for 12 more hours of racing at Bathurst next week. I think you're the only one in the field doing all 3 of those races. Are you crazy? Are you brilliant? How do you summarize the position you find yourself in?
I think definitely crazy. It was brought up by Ian a few weeks ago if I'd be interested in doing it, and obviously it's a great opportunity. Dubai's a very cool race, and Bathurst, I think, for many people is a bucket list. So it was kind of hard to say no.
3 great endurance races, but each with a very distinct character. Certainly, Dubai to Daytona, massive difference in track, massive difference. You go from being the top class in terms of performance to the lowest class in terms of performance, and then you get to Bathurst, and that's a challenge unique in of itself.
100%. Definitely have a little bit more respect for the GTP guys, how difficult it is, and not knowing what the slower cars are going to do. So the first time I was put in that situation, but definitely a cool event in Dubai, and obviously coming here is probably where I'm most comfortable. It's kind of like, putting an old pair of gloves back on. You know the paddock, you know the rules, and definitely for me is the easiest championship to jump into and know what's going on.
And we need the gloves here this weekend. It is cold. Of course, you're from the Great White North, so I don't know, how comfortable are you in these wet and cold conditions in Daytona?
It's not that cold, but no, definitely challenging, and it'll be interesting. I think it's going to be a little bit warmer in the race, but I think the other year where I had the coldest temperatures was 2022. It was like 0 at night or 32 F, and I think we ended up winning that year, so maybe it's a bit of a good omen.
How do you approach this session then with these conditions the way they are, treacherous as they might be? What can you learn in these conditions?
Right now, the goal is just to kind of get everybody comfortable in the rain, comfortable in the dark. But truthfully, looking at the weather for the race, I don't think there's that much to learn. Probably more to lose than to learn. So everybody gets their minimum nighttime in, and I think just kind of get ready for the race.
And we'll close with this. You've been part of this Heart of Racing program for a number of years now. It feels almost like home, at least from the outside. Is that how it feels for you too?
100%. Last year, I was a little bit nervous coming in, truthfully. If you look at all the drivers that's been a part of the Heart of Racing, they truly are kind of like a little family. And coming last year for the first time, I was nervous because you want to fit in, you want to be part of the gang, and it's been super easy for me to join and kind of immediately click with everybody. And now it definitely feels like home.
Well, fantastic to see all the success that you've had over the last couple of years. Best of luck here this weekend. Good luck when you head down under to Bathurst as well. You've got the kind of schedule I think a lot of folks at home would be dreaming of.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ryan.
All right, take care.
Thanks.
Zach Robichon chatting to Ryan Marine. Zach's racing then with Tom Gamble, Mattia Drudi and Casper Stevenson in the second of the Heart of Racing team, Aston Martins. Prior to that, last year's co-European Le Mans Series champion in LMP2, Johnny Edgar from AO Racing. Still plenty of rain around Peter Mackay, and also we had an incident that we can now talk about. It wasn't a serious one because it didn't bring out a caution, but the 50 car stopped. Somewhere on the infield was that?
It looked to me like at the International Horseshoe, just actually kind of parked in between one of the Porsche Cayenne AMR safety vehicles and one of the Advent Health ambulances.
So this is an AF Corsa Ferrari GT car?
Exactly. The number 50, the number 50 AF Corsa car, which was driven by Conrad Larson at the time. So that's something that you don't really want to see. But hopefully there's nothing nothing unfixable, and you're very close to the paddock there, so getting the car retrieved back to the garage won't be a long process at all. It always amazes me how quick the recovery teams work to get the car delivered back to the garage, where it can be, there's plenty of space and tools and people, skilled mechanics to get on top of it. Now we're seeing certainly one of the very front-running GTPs out there, the number 6 Porsche 963 of Mathieu Jaminet, does not need to get any night laps. None of the GTPs do, except the silver graded drivers. That's probably why we're seeing the JDC Miller car, because they do have a couple of silver drivers that need to get their time in.
Oh, yeah.
But for Jaminet, not necessarily as such, but they've gone out, and I guess could you say it's typical Penske perfect preparation? The chances of rain are less than 5%, but they're not 0.
No.
So close everything. I don't know. I would agree with what Zachary Robichon just said there, saying there's probably more to lose than to gain. I would totally agree with that statement right now.
Yeah, but is it reason to just not do a lot of the session? Is it that high risk, or would you necessarily turn down track time even if it's not valuable for the race? My other thought was, in the past we've had IMSA sessions where for the first 20 minutes, let's say, certain cars aren't allowed to compete in it. It's not one of those scenarios, is it? This free practice 2 session where GTPs that maybe don't have a silver driver in can't join until 20 minutes in, because it was just bizarre that they've all been parked until this point.
That could well be. Yes, that could well be. That's a very good point. I'd forgotten about that. But again, even if that weren't the case, it doesn't surprise me to see that the garage is full of GTP cars right now, because, well, we watched earlier on trackside. We get the pictures, of course, in the broadcast booth, but when you go trackside and you see the GTP cars on their first lap out of the pits in qualifying, and they are like going, it's almost like they're going to the grid. They're going so slow.
Yeah.
Because, and you think, why is that? Because the tyre takes quite, even in dry conditions, takes quite a lot of time to get up to temperature and pressure, and before you can push it and go. And even the best drivers in the world will have GT cars driving past them on warm tyres.
Yeah.
So when you throw in the mix of, if you're saying going out on a dry soft onto a sort of lightly damp track, you would be in a lot of trouble. Whereas if you put the wet tyre on, it's probably not actually quite wet enough for a wet at the moment. I think the wet's going to tear itself to pieces right now because it's going to overheat. So it's sort of in this kind of horrible middle ground right now. So for a GTP car particularly, it's a pretty, there's not much to gain and there is a lot to lose, I think would be the way to summarise it.
Well, hunting around for reasons or otherwise, Ryan Marine certainly, and first of all Joe Bradley, because Joe, well, we're posing the question as to why so many of the 12-car fields in GTP have not taken to the racetrack. The 6 car's just done a good time. That's a Porsche 963 for Mathieu Jaminet. It'll take him 3rd overall. The 85's been doing quite a lot of laps, but everybody else yet to properly join this 90-minute session, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, mixed opinion, Johnny. The track conditions aren't great, are they? And it's very, very easy to trip up. And for instance, while I was talking to Johnny Edgar, he mentioned that PJ Hyatt, we saw him go through down the escape road at the Le Mans chicane. No harm, no foul. Yeah, it's very, very easy to get it all wrong, and then you're going to give the team a lot to do. They've got a pretty easy day tomorrow. There's one 1 hour session. The last thing you want to be doing is doing an overnighter to rebuild a car after you've gone out the wet. However, there's still a jobs list to be done, and if I can use the number 4 Corvette as a bit of an example, what we're seeing happen, this car is currently on the pit apron on the jacks, and it's been out and it's been bedding in brake discs and pads, matching the brake discs and pads. And what teams will do, they'll put a brake disc on, or a brake rotor, seeing as where I am in the world, a brake rotor with brake pads. They'll take it out, they'll bed them in, and then that brake rotor, the brake disc, will stay with that caliper and set of pads for when we need a refresh of brake rotors and brake pads. The pads will stay mated with the disc. They don't get put in a box and mixed up. And that's what we're seeing. That's one of the things we're seeing in preparation for the weekend of a 24-hour race. So there's lots of difference in operation processes, protocols going on up and down the pit lane, and each team are doing it in a different way. Clearly the GTP boys and girls are choosing to do as little laps as possible. They are going the fastest through that tri-oval though, in the damp conditions, in fairness.
Yeah, where at lower speeds you want mechanical grip beneath you, which is not necessarily a specialism for a GTP car, as opposed to the GT cars, the GT Daytona cars, which are quite a bit heavier and can deal with the slower speeds, although they carry an awful lot of air on them as well. So GTP cars 1st and 6th, and then the majority of the rest of the top 10, with the exception of one car, are LMP2s, and the fastest LMP2 car is the 88, which is the entry from AF Corsa, and the driver currently at the wheel of that is Dylan Murray. The one interloper is a GTD Pro car, so the fastest within that category, that's the 48 BMW. We talked about that earlier on because it was one that was going 3 wide on the banking, the Paul Miller racing car that had Max Hess at the wheel earlier on. It's now Augusto Farfus in 8th overall, so ahead of him 5 LMP2s and those 2 GTP cars. We'll get another thought from PMAC in just a second, but before that, here's Ryan from the pits once again. Get to Ryan in just a tick. PMAC, GT GT cars in general are happy in these conditions, you might say. I'm also just trying to wrap my brains about GTP drivers, whether anybody is new to Daytona, but you would have thought if they've all been signed up to hustle a GT prototype around this place, they must have done it once or twice before. So do they necessarily need track time to work out this place at night, or will they've done it many times before?
Well, the one driver that would definitely be in that category would be in the 93 Mershank Acura, which has gone out onto track now, is Kaku Ota, the Japanese driver, who's got a huge amount of success at home in Japan in the highly competitive Super Formula Series, in Japanese Formula 4. He's been on the podium several times in the Super GT Series, which is hugely popular in Japan. But as far as I can decipher, this is his multi-class sports car debut, so let alone Daytona, let alone the Rolex 24, or IMSA for that matter. This is a very new thing for him, so track time for him important. And Joe made an excellent point there about the jobs. Typical, he's not lost his team manager processes, has he? You know, there is, of course, that's absolutely a good point, and a great opportunity for the teams to practice brake changes too, because they're a really key part of performance in this 24-hour race. They'll have to change the brakes at least once on the cars, so you'll see that happening at various points through the race, kind of from just before halfway even to sort of 8-9 hours to go. And last year's GTD winner, the Windward Racing Mercedes, they actually did something really quite interesting. They changed the front right brake rotor and pads at one stop, and then they came in after another stop an hour later when the car ran out of fuel, and in they came and they did the left-hand side. I don't know how the car must have felt to drive with it like that, but that's what they did, and it meant that they could do their brake change under green flag and not lose any time, because basically in a IMSA pit stop you've got 40 seconds maximum amount of time with the fuel nozzle going in to filling the tank up. So say if it was really, really low, you'd get just under 40 seconds. So if you're doing a driver change, you need to get it done in certainly 30 seconds or less. And you think, 30 seconds, that must just go by in the blink of an eye. So there's lots that can go wrong in that time. You've got a lot to do in that time. You often you'll be changing tyres as well. So that, the work for the crews and the preparation for the crews is important, because you think about it, it's been a while since Petit Le Mans. Petit Le Mans 3.5 months ago. So it's a reasonable old while.
Yeah. You made me look up Kaku Ota to find out if any he had experience of this place, and he did do the IMSA sanctioned test here at Daytona. That was November last year, so after the finale at Petit Le Mans, but that won't have been in the dark. Was it in the dark?
There might have been some dark sessions, but...
Okay. Different darkness in November compared to January, though. Just nod your head and agree.
Depends what time of day.
Well, that's true. Let's bring Nick Damon in, because there's been a change in the pit lane with thanks to Ryan Marine. I've just realised Ryan, I heard his voice in my headphones, and I thought, he's got an update, and all he was saying was he was handing the microphone to you, Nick. So welcome aboard.
That is one heck of an update, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Isn't it just? I like to give the update. I like to give the listener and the viewer a sneaky peek behind the curtain of the broadcast.
I won't go too far. That curtain can be snagged right back sometimes. So we meandered back in to the pit lane, from the pit in to pit out. Very light spitting, the sort of weather we're very used to back in the UK. We desperately want to go out on your motorcycle. You look out the window, it's fine. Then suddenly you walk out and it's raining, you can't go. That's personal experience. Also, walking up from pit in, you obviously go past most of the GTP and some of the higher scoring other cars from last year's championships. They go in championship order from last year on the whole. And it was quite ghost towny at that point. A bit of activity with the Porsche. I'm looking at the 93 Acura, who you've obviously been talking about as well because of the Japanese driver. He's out now. Well, he's about to do a speedy driver change, actually. They're just doing driver change practice. So there is a timidity, it appears, for the GTPs to go and risk anything at the moment. Whereas there's a lot of people in GT3s just turning laps. As I think you've already said, it's probably qualification terms. But what I would say, and I'm really positive about this, because it's the rain's brought the cloud, it's kind of up the temperature a little bit because the wind's dropped. So it's actually more pleasant to be out here, even though it's slightly damp than it was earlier.
Well, there's always a plus point, I say, and you found it with that comment. So thank you, Nick, and I'm sure it will get busier towards the end of the session. This is almost just the middle section of Free Practice 2 as teams weigh up precisely what they need to achieve and what they stand to lose, which was Jordan Pepper's point, I think, a little earlier on. One or two have made it through the course of this session. How applicable are these current conditions as the 91 Corvette is very, very sideways on the infield coming out of the international horseshoe, and it finally does straighten up. But that's an indication when you're coming out on cold tyres just how little grip is available to the 91 Corvette, which is the Trackhouse by TF Sport car. You and I have been drawn to that because of many years of following the V8 Supercar Championship in Australia, and Shane Van Gisbergen and Scott McLaughlin, who have not necessarily been known for being good pals for much of their driving career, are in the same car this year.
If you were to wind the clock back to the times when Scott McLaughlin was driving for DGR Team Penske at the time, and Shane Van Gisbergen was driving for 888 Holden, and they were the two real superstars in the class, and going for Bathurst 1000 victories. If you'd have said in a few years' time they're going to share a car together and they're going to race at Daytona, now for them they've done lots of sports car stuff in the past with success, but not just at Bathurst or wherever. But to see them in the same car is a really interesting combo. It's a really cool lineup actually, with young Connor Zilic, who was one of the standout drivers, one of the standout revelations of last year's Rolex 24. He won the race in LMP2 on debut with the Era Motorsport team, and he was put in the absolute dogfight with the 04 CrowdStrike car, which went on basically from sun up to the checkered flag. So he's a driver which a lot of people have got a firm eye on as well. That number 50 Ferrari, which broke down on circuit and returned to the paddock, it's gone back out again. So that's good news. The Wright Motorsport Porsche was being pushed back to the garage. Now that there might not be a problem there, it might just be that they've had enough, and that's that. The good thing is as well is that you have a wet tyre application, and you're likely not to really need it in the race per se. So you can actually go fairly safe and have the wet tyre on, and you don't need to worry about using up too many tyres here. You can go out on track if you want to, guilt-free.
And this session will have been declared wet, and that effectively releases the button or provides the instruction that you can start to bolt on the treaded tyre, but no intermediate. He's shaking his head, people.
No.
I didn't think there was, but I just want to make sure I'm up to date with the latest regulations. The intermediate has been scrapped, for instance, in the World Endurance Championship and in other ACO-based competitions. IMSA tend to stick as closely as possible to the way it's done elsewhere in the world. And the tyre warmers actually, it was a long-standing rule here, the lack of them in American racing, which I was always a big fan of, and amazingly, WEC and the ELMS kind of adopted that, which makes it really interesting, particularly on cold days at Spa-Francorchamps, which today here at Daytona has been competed with, I'd say. Colder than Snetterton was the stat that was pulled out earlier on in our broadcast.
Warmer than Knockhill, though, I checked.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's quite a bit further north.
That's true. That is a lot further north. The times all of a sudden have got a lot closer to what we would normally expect. Mathieu Jaminet with a 1 minute 38.877. That's in kind of race pace. That's only a couple of seconds off. So we're getting closer. So that won't be on a wet tyre. That'll be on a dry tyre. Also in the GTD Pro class, Augusto Farfus 148.5. Again, that's getting well within 2 seconds of the pace in GTD Pro, and the purple times are just flashing all over our timing screen right now. So the track is almost taking a sudden jump in pace. Joey Hand, who we spoke to a little bit early on for Gradient Racing, a 149.824 for him. So there's work to be done out there. Tom Dillman, he goes second overall on the times, 139.345. That is a fast time in the try.
Yes.
For LMP2.
Yeah.
So where's this come from?
See, for everybody else, they need cars to be on track to be the reference point to know when to send your car out. So there are got to be these brave people. Mathieu Jaminet went quicker than everybody else a short time ago in the number 6 Porsche, so he's quite happy with the 138.877 because he immediately parked it after that. But clearly conditions are starting to improve, even though the rain appeared again after a period where it seemed to be clearing away. The cloud cover's still there, as Nick Damon made the point, so I suppose the rain could burst back into life at any moment. But you've got to be raring to go for the little windows of performance you might get and some valuable running. But what you're not going to be able to do is, let's say, do a dummy night stint, because we've already had nearly half the session and it's been very staccato throughout. It stayed green, but conditions just all over the place.
They are a bit, yes. And interestingly, when we've seen fast lap times, often the car's gone straight into the pits at the next opportunity, probably with the engineer on the radio saying, "Okay, that's enough yet. Thanks for that. Great, well done. Come in and have a rest. Like, don't stuff it, please." Behave yourselves. A lot of the teams have got their whole driver lineup suited and booted, ready to go on the pit wall, just cycling through, giving everyone a chance to get out there and get some nighttime running, get in the car, get some track time. Interestingly, that of the Porsche Penske Motorsport GTPs, just the 6 car has come out to play. The 7 car has not. None of the Cadillacs have come out. It's really GTP. We've had just 2 Porsches. One of the private cars, the JDC Miller car, the yellow car, and the number 6 factory car of Mathieu Jaminet. And I think this is a point that needs discussing as well. Mathieu Jaminet and Matt Campbell back together. You know, they were really a great lineup. They won the IMSA Championship in GTD Pro. They were first ever GTD Pro champions with Faf. Won the 24-hour here, and then when the 963 program came along, they got split up basically. Same with Michael Christensen and Kevin Estra, split up, and they were sort of spread across the program, but they've been brought back together for this season. Have Matt Campbell and Mathieu Jaminet.
Slowing again is the 50 Ferrari, and that is, well, missing out the Le Mans chicane entirely, the AF Corsa entry. And who's in that car right now? This isn't an outlap. Conrad Lausen in car 50, which is in 20th position when you combine all of the GT Daytona cars. So the Lumirank type number on the side displays where it is in its category, and then the white illuminated number is its race number for the weekend. But that's heading back to pit road now and in the direction of Nick Damon, although Nick, I hear you're not actually in pit road any longer.
No, I've left. I've had enough. No, Ryan said to me, Nick, it might be an idea to go and have a look in the garages, because there's not much going on in the pits. Have a look in the garages. First, just say both the Penske Porsches are actually on the apron, waiting to go. And there are a selection of cars which are definitely not appearing in this session. One of which is the 31 Whelen Cadillac. That's in about 1,100 pieces. The 45 Wayne Taylor Racing, that's actually one of the GT3 cars. That's I think it's a Lambo from a long distance. That's not coming. Neither of the BMWs are taking part. Neither the car that got pole nor the car that broke down are in any way likely to take part. They're all in a state of dissolution, undressed, as is the Proton Competition Porsche 963. That's the number 5 car. That's also been completely stripped to its constituent parts. It's not even got any suspension at the moment either on the front right. So it's quite interesting. A lot of people obviously probably made a decision quite early. They weren't going to bother, to be honest. It's just not, we've seen the weather. We're not going to learn anything. We've run in the night during the Raw sessions. Everyone's qualified. But yeah, none of these cars are in any way like to make this session, or even seem like they want to make this session.
Thank you, Nick. Yes, it does seem to be a little bit of a split decision in GTP. Issues for the number 52 PR1 Matheson car. That's the Wins liveried machine. It was coming out onto track, and the headlights were going on and then off and then on and off. It's almost like they're kind of trying to cycle it through, but it was running. It looks like it's getting back up to pace again. PR1 Matheson, they are certainly a team that know how to get the job done. And with their record in this championship, just amazing. 5 out of the 6 LMP2 championships in IMSA, they've won it. Their cars won it, which in a category like LMP2 is quite a boast, to say the least. Johnny Palmer.
It's really close because everyone's got the same car in that category, of course. I was having to remind myself whether it was still a semi-open chassis formula, which it is. You do have still choices of 4 different chassis to run in LMP2, but nobody does. They all go with the Orica 07 because it's the best car, and that means that the variables come from setup and the driver makeup that you've decided to go with. And are all the LMP2 combinations 4 drivers?
Yes.
I think they are.
Yes, they are. Well, you could say the PR1 Matheson car is 3.5. Because they've got Ben Keating in the car. And Ben Keating, he's double duty, as is his tradition. He's in the 91 Trackhouse Corvette and in the PR1 Matheson car with the Wins colours. So actually, they've got 2 bronzes in the PR1 Matheson car. They've got Ben Keating, who's a name that needs no introduction in IMSA racing. I would read out his CV, but we'll be here all night. But he's paired up with Rodrigo Salas, a Mexican driver who has one of the most enviable classic race car collections you could possibly imagine. He owns a car which Porsche fans will know as HR1, which is the Lowenbrow Porsche 962 that was driven by Al Holbert, Derek Bell, Al Unser, Chip Robinson. It won 3 IMSA championships. It won this race, the Daytona 24. It won at Watkins Glen and many others. He owns a Porsche RS Spider, the Petit Le Mans class winner in 2008, and he owns the 911 RSR that won the Petit Le Mans overall.
Nice.
With Pele and Tandy, so he's got a fair collection, and that's not the end of it either. But down in the pit lane, we've got more for you. What have you got, chaps?
Oh, well, that's called not turning the button on. We bumped into Robin Frijns in the garage with the BMW. Obviously, shares the car with Sheldon van der Linde. We saw Sheldon come to a halt in qualifying. What was the problem, Robin?
Yeah, technical problem with the car, really. We changed the battery already, we changed the MGU already, so I think the cars should be running pretty smoothly now, but yeah, the team is working hard to get the car out, to have some installation laps, that the car is in a good state before we go out again tomorrow.
Oh, so you are trying to get this out in the next 20 minutes or so. I mean, you say so you've identified it as a part of the electrical drive system rather than what we would call the old-fashioned engine part.
No, I think the engine is fine. The engine is the same as we driven in FP1, so that has not changed.
Let's talk about these cars, because we were a little bit surprised to see Dries van Toor take pole. The pace hadn't been, obviously was there, we hadn't seen it. Were you surprised when your team sister car took pole?
Well, obviously we were hoping for it, and I think if you look at the raw pace we had, it was quite strong. You never know what the other teams are doing. Acura always looks strong, Cadillac always looks strong, and then we do believe that Porsche will come back in the race. So, but he did a good lap. Credits to him. Obviously, Blomqvist got a bit blocked by the Lamborghini, so we never know what he could have done. But it's good that BMW is on pole. It's the first pole for BMW in IMSA Championship. So there was some celebrations in the paddock for sure.
The car was getting better and better during the whole of the last season, and obviously you actually managed to win a race, but how much work was done over the winter, and so how different is this car from the car which you stuck on the trailer after Petit Le Mans?
It's a bit different, obviously. We adapted a few things. We didn't have a full update on the car because the car didn't change how it looks like, obviously, but we had some issues last year with, for example, braking we were struggling with, so we changed that. We updated that one. So the car seems to be in a better window for especially 24-hour races. So we do believe that we have a good package. The thing is that we had an issue now in the qualifying. Hopefully we are done for issues on the side for the race, and we can have a clean race and hopefully, always fight in the front.
It's interesting you say you've improved the braking, because I know a lot of the work during the start of last year was all about improving the systems, improving the software. Have you now got down to old-fashioned car setup, where you're dealing with the mechanical bits?
Yeah, it's a mix of everything. Obviously, if you change the system, you change the balance of the car, you change the springs down to roll bars, all the old style, as you say. But the systems are lately very powerful in the car. If we have, let's say, the wrong systems on, you can upside down the car completely. And if for example in the race it starts raining, it's very difficult for us to get the car in a good window with the system we're having in the car. So it's tricky. It's a challenge for sure. But it's also sometimes a bit frustrated if you can't get the system right. So we have a lot of engineers in the truck looking at the car to help us with the systems, and it's definitely a big improvement which we had last year, that's for sure.
Well, thank you. Hope you get the car out for the end of the session.
We're pushing, thank you.
The 77 AO Porsche, we heard earlier that a gearbox change had to be carried out on the car, and with the team manager now, Gunnar Jeannette. Gunnar, it's a bit of a character building Daytona so far for the 77 car. You've already got a bit of a jotter there, almost full. Tell us the stories, tell us the woes. Firstly, why was the gearbox changed exactly?
Yeah, well, it's our third season with Rexy. He's an adolescent dinosaur now, so he's filled with a little bit of that, teenage angst. So things have been pretty difficult. We had a good roar, no problems. We did so much prep in the off season, but it seems like a lot of things have been coming back to bite us today. We just had a mix-up with the gearbox, so we ended up having to swap it. In the process of the swap, we had some wiring harness issues. It's all self-inflicted, nothing from Porsche. Porsche's been massively helpful getting us back out there. So we're kind of just working through one by one now. We hope everything calms down after this.
So I was told initially you thought it was a loom, and a loom on a 911, it's kind of 2 days worth of work. The car has just rolled back out on the pit apron, so I take it it hasn't taken 2 days and it's been rectified, or are we waiting to see?
No, we're kind of crossing things off the list one by one. The car as it sits here isn't 100% ready for the race, but we're crossing a couple of other things off the list, so hopefully that all evens out to a 100% ready race car tomorrow.
Well, you've gotten rid of all your bad luck and all the character building stuff in the preliminaries. Everything's going to be fine in the race, Gunnar.
Yeah, we certainly hope so.
It is, mate. Thank you. Thanks, Gunnar.
Gunnar Jeannette from the AO Racing team. What a story, for that squad. They had their debut in IMSA here at the Rolex 24 a couple of years ago with the iconic Swap Shop livery, and having problems out on track for the 04 Toby Soweries in the CrowdStrike LMP2 car, and the headlights have gone off. Renger van der Zande Petit Le Mans style. Toby's still driving it around almost on muscle memory. Oh no, it's like it's gone on to side lights.
They weren't on, I agree with you.
Oh, now they've come back on. Oh, there they are,
yeah,
fully on now.
Burst into life, but it still had the side lights. You were quite right, but he couldn't actually see the road in front of him, Toby Sowery, on the infield, which is somewhat frightening. So you're entirely reliant on muscle memory there. The track hasn't changed, as John Hindhaugh always says to me. When you go from a daylight stint into nighttime, the track's position is still there, but you have to know in which direction you are pointing to know which corner comes next. And thankfully, Toby Sowery, who's relatively inexperienced around here, that was an outlap for him as well, possibly his first action of the session, and all the lights went out. But thankfully, maybe a reset in the cockpit, and that has been solved.
The lights went out, but thankfully someone was very much home.
Yes.
Toby Sowery has found his home in that CrowdStrike LMP2 car. I mean, in sports car racing in general, he's had good success on the Road to Indy ladder and won races in Indy Lights, etc. But really, I think he's found his calling in sports car racing. He drove fantastically at the Dubai 24 Hour a couple of weeks ago and won his class for Paradigm competition. And for this CrowdStrike team last year, again, he was one of the drivers who was in that dogfight between CrowdStrike and ERA from, as they say, sun up to the checkered flag. Christian Rasmussen, who was in the ERA car, he was another guy who just stood out. Malte Jakobsen was in the CrowdStrike car. So it was like all the upcoming talents all together battling in those two prototypes. So a little bit of a scare there for CrowdStrike. But coming back to AO Racing, where we spoke to their team manager Gunnar Jeannette a little while, just a moment ago there actually. Amazing. You think that they started in 2023 with a Porsche program with the swap shop livery, and they had a difficult start. All the Porsches had a difficult start to the life of the 992 as it was brand new at that point. But here we are, a couple of years later, and they're IMSA GTD Pro champions with Lauren Heinrich last year against a plethora of fantastic drivers and teams. So their ascent has been amazing.
Up against some established teams, some very experienced crews as well, and that was quite a dominant for a season. But can you then sustain that? One championship's fabulous, but they always used to say you've got to get 3, and preferably in a row, and that makes you a true champion. So and it's very difficult to do that in a category which is closely policed, and even more so in 2025 and beyond, with the torque sensors that we've talked a lot about as well.
That's going to be interesting to see. Do we get I don't even know how we could get an even greater variety of winners than what we had last year. Will we have less different winners, or will we have more different winners? I think that's too early to say, really. What I can tell you is that Alex Palou has just gone to the top of the timesheets with a 137.855. So we're now within a second, really, of the race pace. So that it's just bizarre how the track is progressed over this time, but there's 0.477 of a second between Palou in that Acura and the number 6 of Mathieu Jaminet for Porsche Penske Motorsport. But down to the pits, Nick Damon has got more for us.
Alex Sims, just eating a packet of crisps and having a banana. Is this the new superfood for a racing driver? I know bananas are in, but crisps, I hope so, because I love a good crisp.
Yeah, I think they're slightly healthy crisps, so anything at this point to get through the cold weather.
Yeah, we should be used to it, shouldn't we, really? Or have you now spent so much time as an international racing driver you've lost your British cold ability?
I couldn't quite hear what you said there, but about the cold weather, was it?
I was just saying, if you spent so much time abroad now, you've lost your ability to be cold in Britain,
No, it's fine. I mean, I can't feel my toes, but that's standard, right? It's just not. It's nice being here. It's a shame that the weather has got a bit colder for everyone, but we're just going through the few processes left to do, bedding in, putting a heat cycle through a couple of sets of tyres, a couple of brake changes for the mechanics in pit lane, just a few bits of practice before the race. I think we're kind of just ticking off a few last boxes.
Obviously, you've had a week here, including last weekend with the Corvette. Where do you feel it is in the scheme of things against the other GT3 cars?
I think we're in a reasonable position. It's always tough to know until we get really 10, 12, 14 hours into the race and you really see what everyone can do in the different conditions from day through to night. But we seem to be at the right end of the field. And, we've got a lot of confidence in our Corvette. It's been performing well and throughout last season got more and more reliable as we understood more about it in race trim.
How do you feel about the formal split between the GTD Pro and the GTD class? Is it going to make much difference to you, or do you think it's going to make it easier during the various yellow flag environments?
I think it's a real positive. For example, what one race last year, Petit Le Mans, towards the end of the race, at a restart, we were on the same lap as the car ahead, but I think there was something like 12 GTDs or something in between me and the next car in class. And so you're just stuck in this position where you're just racing super hard against people to try and make headway to get to the next car in class, but those cars you're racing against are the same speed as you. And so every single overtake is a do-or-die move, but it's for nothing at the end of the day as well. And those cars don't want to let you pass, because then it puts you, another car between them and their next car in class. So it just created racing that was unnecessary, to be honest, and risks that you quite often didn't want to take unless it was right at the end of the race. So hopefully more of the racing will be more relevant for all of us.
One final question about the weather. I mean, does this there's millions and millions of balance of performance parameters people talk about, power, torque, we've got torque centres. Does the weather come in? Do some cars just work better when it's cold than others?
Yeah, for sure. Different cars that I've driven in my career, some switch the tyres on really easily, and so in the cold weathers would be particularly strong, whereas some others, really it's a struggle to bring the tyres up to temperature in the cold weather, and so then you just literally have less grip than other cars that I've driven. So it will favour some just as much as hot conditions will favour or work against some cars. So thankfully our Corvette works pretty well in all weather, but it does play to different strengths.
Guys, I've got one final question, because P. Mac up in the booth wants to know what is the official flavour of crisp, because he's obviously on a major kind of fitness kick.
Well, I've just tried these for the first time. They're white cheddar and they're pretty cheesy, so I personally wouldn't recommend them.
To be honest, P. Mac's pretty cheesy as well, so that's fine. Thanks, Alexander.
Brilliant stuff there. I hope Alex Sims packed enough strong mints, because with the cheesy crisps you're going to have some pretty smelly breath. Anyway, someone who I'm sure has got fantastic breath is Ollie Jarvis, and he's with Joe Bradley.
Well, as a team effort goes, front and second row grid starts in LMP2 for United Autosports. Ollie, great team effort, I think.
Yeah, fantastic result for the team, first and third. Of course, we've been really selfish. We'd have liked to lock out the front row and also have our car on pole, but Dan did a superb job, and it's not a bad starting place for the 24 hours.
Ollie, as you know, we'll turn up tomorrow. Today will be forgotten. It'll be all about Saturday and Sunday, won't it? Were you guys running a qualifying setup, or were you guys running the sort of pace that we're going to see in the race?
I mean, firstly, like you say, today's forgotten, but it doesn't mean it's not important for the drivers. It has no bearing on the race result, but it's always nice to get that pole position, and especially in a race like this.
I knew you were going to say this. I knew you were going to labour the point that you guys are starting on the second. However, I would imagine, Ollie, that your job is going to be to get ahead of the 22, and in fact every other LMP2 car out there.
Yeah, I mean, our job, firstly, just to keep it on track, stay out of trouble. We always say this in Daytona, and then 3 hours in, there's wheel banging, there's incidents, but stay out of trouble, stay on the front, and make sure we're there for the last 2-3 hours.
I'm not going to say unprecedented, because I think a couple of years ago we did have these cold conditions as well. Team from Yorkshire should go well in the cold. However, we're not in Yorkshire, we're in America. So, how are things with regard to that? Has there been much chat about the cold track that you're going to encounter?
No, I think the biggest thing really is it's not even a setup thing. It's for the drivers on the outlaps. The big difference is when you get in that car at night and it is 3-4 degrees, it just takes another lap or two to get the tyres up to temperature. So it's being cautious, also being aware of other cars coming out the pit lane. That's gonna, even 2 or 3 years ago when it was cold, I remember you get the GTPs come out and it takes them forever to warm the tyres up. So you just got to be very aware of that. But in terms of setup, I don't think it's made a huge difference to us so far.
What about driver comfort, Ollie? It's all right, 2 and 3 degrees. I'd have my heater whacked right up. What are we like in these race cars?
I'm laughing because actually it makes it more comfortable unless you're like my teammate from Australia, who's wearing ski gloves and he can't hear me right now, but he's moaning about his feet being cold.
Yeah. And is that a factor? Will your feet be cold in the cockpit?
Mine weren't, but I'm used to this kind of weather, so no, it wasn't a big issue, but it could be for some if you're used to warmer climates.
I think it's called thin blood, isn't it?
Yeah. Something like that.
Thanks, Ollie. I'm not going to say anything more because I don't want to hex United Autosports race, but well done to everybody in the team. Thank you, Oliver Jarvis.
Oliver Jarvis has had an amazing record at this race, a winner overall in 2022 with the Meyer Shank team, the last race of the DPI era here at Daytona. He actually won on debut all the way back in 2018 in an Audi R8 as well. So Daytona has certainly been kind, and when we think about it, that year that Ollie won the race was that really, really cold year in 2022.
Yes.
So is that an omen? Is he doing what's the dance that you do for the cold? The chill dance.
I need some time to think about that, but there's going to be a great record that references chilly or freezing conditions
I love it how
Give me
you
a
turn
moment.
to our guest,
Yeah, because I
Declan
thought
Brennan, at that point.
Declan Brennan had an option as well, potentially. We'll get our thinking caps on. There's always an appropriate dance for any moment or weather condition you wish to arrive in the 24 hours of Daytona. So what, disco tunes about dancing in a fridge, Declan? The Southern Freeze. By Freeze. Is that a band? Okay. I'll have to.
The dulcet Irish tones.
No, I'll look it up.
But yes, it was the Southern Freeze, and we're in the south, and it could freeze. So it's
You've got all bases covered there, and potentially in snow, or at least ice.
Dulcet Irish tones that you're hearing is Declan Brennan from Gradient Racing with their Ford Mustang, their brand new shiny Ford Mustang. Dex, were you there when the car arrived? Were you there on delivery day?
No, the car arrived at the shop in Austin, and I was like a smitten teenager waiting for his the first call from his girlfriend by the phone. I'm staring at my phone waiting for the photographs to come through from Anders, the team manager of the shop, and but the problem is, that they always come in plastic, and they're always like it takes a while. Like, they don't roll out of the truck all shiny and beautiful. They're all covered in stuff. And but when he sent through the photographs with the 66, our big 66 on it, which is very we're in NASCAR country. We're at the home of the Daytona 500. I wholly endorse our massive 66 on our car. It's great.
Very useful for us as well when we're trying to identify cars from this distance.
Absolutely. But also, there's only three of us. Two of us are the factory cars, and there's us. So it is easy to differentiate between both. And it is it's interesting. It's got so many compliments. That very simplistic livery, but with the big number, it's awesome. I love it.
I'll agree. And I just think when you hear the car coming around the banking, you think, that's a NASCAR coming around on the high banks. Now you think, oh no, it's a GT3 car. It's a wonderful piece of kit, this machine. Tell us about the atmosphere in the team, because Gradient have been a presence in IMSA for several years and had a lot of good results, but this is a whole new era for the team. It's gone from probably one of the oldest cars in the class to one of the very latest. What's the atmosphere of the team at Gradient, and particularly with the pace that was being shown by the two works cars in qualifying earlier?
Well, atmosphere's great. It's coming off. It's amazing. We first raced the NSX in 2018 at Sebring. 2018, and it was. In fact, I might get this wrong. It had its homologation extended at least once, possibly twice, during that period. The period we had it. So it was to say it was coming to the end of its natural life would be fair and accurate. But that obviously didn't stop us taking the very important win for it in 22 when we won Petit Le Mans, because that's a race that car had never won. It was the longest and most prestigious endurance race the car had ever won. So we were very, very proud of that. And people, it's easy to forget about that we at that event struggled in qualifying. We had a turbo issue and basically nullified all of our qualifying. Till started from the back. He drove legitimately up into the top 5 in his stint, and we knew the car had great pace. And he was 17 at the time. Kevin Simpson did an amazing job in the car, now an IndyCar, of course. And Super Mario Farnbacher just brought it home, and it was, I'm not going to say it was routine because it wasn't, but it was oddly almost trouble-free, which is, it's kind of disconcerting when that happens, when you're looking and you're thinking, I think we could win this, and then it becomes, we probably are going to win. I didn't have to think, because it's especially a race of that stature, but that vibe is back, because it not quite to that extent because we've a long way to go, but this car is fantastic. The factory cars are clearly very fast, and we are, according to Joey says they're comparable, and he feels that this is set up beautifully, and he's delighted with it, and Harry's doing a great job. Tatiana is one of the most. You couldn't ask for a better teammate to work with. She's fantastic, and Till is Till. Till just turns up and does his cool bronze thing and goes as quick as he needs to and beds himself in. He's kind of like I always say he's like Chris Tavares, but not as slow at bedding himself in. He's like a cricketer, takes a while to find his rhythm.
Yeah.
There's a couple of fours in the second or the or second or third over. Yeah, we've gone full test match special.
Well, let's not do that.
Yeah,
but,
definitely not.
But what we have is a foursome who are really like gel beautifully, which is great. So we got that great vibe in the hauler, and everybody has the speed you want from Tatiana's a silver, Til's a bronze, Harry is Harry, Joey's Joey. And there's like a pretty good level of confidence. I'd love to sit here and say we're just happy to be here, but we're not. We have the platform to win GTD, and if we're not saying that we want to win it, then why would we be here?
Exactly. You're talking multiple $1 million program for all the teams up and down the grid. But I mean, I think this year to win GTD. Whoever walks away with those Rolex watches on Sunday afternoon, they'll have beaten 26 other top quality entries. Well, I've never seen it more competitive. You've been in the sport a lot longer than I have, but I've never seen it more competitive than that.
Cheeky.
I'm saying that I'm alluding to your experience.
It was meant to be a compliment.
It was.
It didn't sound.
Did it not sound like it?
Terribly
I
like
apologise then.
So the way I look at it, to be perfectly honest, is if you take the GTD in its entirety with Pro and Am, it is utterly preposterous how much depth there is, how many cars, and there's probably in a GTD in our category specifically, there's probably 15 cars that could win more, which is insane, and it does require you to basically, you don't have to run completely trouble-free, but everything has to be approached right. There's no point trying to lead the first 18 hours, or everything has to be methodical. You've got to get everything right. Get your stint lengths right, get your stops right, get your use of your tyres right. The driving talent is great, and to your point, the driving talent throughout is so even, you could argue. A lot of it will come down to the brains trust on the pit boxes. And if that's the case, I fancy us. If it comes down to making the put it this way, I'll give an example. I'm a Philadelphia Eagles fan for our American listeners. They're playing in the afternoon after the race finishes. They're playing in the NFC Championship game against Washington. I am panicking over it because our head coach makes terrible decisions under pressure, and all it takes is him to make one wrong decision at the wrong time to blow it. And he only has to do it for 3.5 hours. We have to, our team, Andres and Pinky, have to do this for 24 hours. They have to manage strategy, manage drive times, all those little things that you can't make errors like that. And we almost take as read how fast the pro drivers and the good bronzes are, but you can't take it as read that because you don't know, you're not in control of everything that happens, and sometimes you have to be reactive. Like, suddenly we can come in now, our pit window has changed, and suddenly drive time opportunities opened up to get somebody in and out, and they're decisions you have to make like that. And it's that's what wins and loses these races.
Yeah, it's that close, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is that close. Well, we're so excited to see how the team get on with this shiny new toy.
Not as excited as I am.
Yeah, I can tell. It's radiating off you.
No, that's just because I walked up some stairs.
Declan Brennan from the Gradient Racing team with their shiny new Ford Mustang with the big 66 on the side, and they're looking good for the race, as are so many entries in GTD. At the top of the timesheets, it's Alex Palou for Acura Meyershank Racing, 137.513, and not just one of those times, JP, 3 and 3 on the bounce before bringing that car into the pits.
Yeah, terrific run, wasn't it, to get that time out of the car, and we had fair warning, therefore. So Kaku Ota, who I was slightly concerned about his lack of Daytona laps, although he did do the sanctioned test last November, and he's right up there now at the sharp end. That was the driver that we identified as wanting potentially to get some of these night laps in with his limited experience, but he's a tenth and a half clear of the two Porsche 963s, car 6 for Mathieu Jaminet and the 85 of Pascal Wehrlein now, number 85. So 3 GTP cars right at the top. They've been slow burners, the GTPs. Still only had 4 of them set times, and the 4th of those, which is the 7 Porsche Penske Motorsport 963, now driven by Nick Tandy, goes fastest as I talk about them. A 1:37.326 with 12 minutes to go, John Hindhaugh.
Yeah, just on the way back from the fabulous evening meal, and well done again to our caterers at Jeppers, absolutely brilliant stuff. And you forget until you're at ground level just how quick these cars are. And going down towards the West Horseshoe there on the golf cart, they're off to my right, and you go, oh, those GT3s are quick. Oh my goodness, there goes GTP. He's never going to stop that. He's going off. He's going straight off. No, he's not.
No, he's not. And he's been doing that for the last half an hour at that speed, in fact.
It's incredible.
I agree with you. Sitting this far up, terrific view, but you lose all perspective of the forces involved at ground level and the energy that these cars are carrying. And I made sure I found time during qualifying to see the GTPs at speed. We didn't see a great deal of that with Sheldon van der Linde's moment on the infield. But, well, there's ample opportunity now, but only 4 have taken it in the GT class to date.
Yeah. Johnny Palmer has been alongside Declan Brennan and Peter Mackay. Let's go down to Nick Damon, who's still plying his trade in the pit lane, and we're going to have a bit of Yorkshire grit.
We are with Jack Hawksworth out of the 12 Vasser Sullivan car. Jack, first of all, a bit of a change for you this season. There's been a shuffle in the team. What's the thinking behind that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm first of all super excited about this season. In terms of as far as the thinking goes, I think we just we strengthened those chances on both cars a little bit, and yeah, I mean, just a change up, right? Like the team thought we needed to freshen things up, and that's where we're at. So I'm super excited about it, driving alongside Parker and Frankie, and then Kyle for this race. So we got a super strong lineup, and yeah, feel really good about it.
So how different is your role as the pro in a GTD team compared to your role as a pro in an all-pro red panel team?
I mean, it doesn't really change too much, to be honest. Like, both my teammates, Frankie, Parker, they have a lot of experience with the car and everything, and yeah, they're super quick. So obviously, try and help where I can, but for the most part, we're all working together really well, and it's kind of been seamless.
I think with the retirement of the Acura, you're now the oldest GT3 in the field. Are you still learning things about this car, or do you know it all now?
It's certainly getting harder to learn things. Yeah, every year, obviously, we refine things a bit more. The team have done a really good job of that. But yeah, certainly we know we're the oldest car on the grid now, and we're trying to make the best of it this season, and obviously excited about the future as well. I think there's some good stuff coming. So yeah, we feel like we're in a good place this year. Hopefully, get the last bits of juice out of the RCF, and yeah, see what we can do.
So this is the last year for this car, is it?
No, I don't know, but
well, yes.
We know there's some stuff coming.
Do you need to be helped out by the BOP, or does the fact you have so experienced this car actually give you a bit of an advantage?
Well, I mean, we have a lot of experience with the car, so I think that helps in terms of like consistency throughout the year. But yeah, for sure, in some situations, right, like the newer models have a little bit different technology and stuff like that. But I mean, we've shown the last few years we can compete. We won Sebring, Petit, the championship. So yeah, hopefully we can keep it going.
Hope so too. Thanks, Jack.
Cheers, mate.
Nick Damon with Jack Hawksworth down in the pit lane. And we're heading into the last 8 minutes now of what has been the longest day today, before we get, of course, to the full 24 hours on Saturday into Sunday. 1:40 green flag. We'll have it all live for you here in the States as well, if you're moving around maybe you haven't got connectivity for RS2, Sirius XM 206 on Sirius XM for the whole race, flag to flag, and also of course on RS2. For those of you outside the US, the whole race is live without interruption on the World Feed TV, which you can find at IMSA.tv, also at IMSARadio.com. There's a little tab at the top. You can pull it down. Watch it on YouTube as well. But of course, you are a slave to the random ads that pop up unless you're paying a subscription. Out on the circuit at the moment, still just bare minimum of the GTP cars, although I've just spotted, I think, a new taker. Yes, I have. It's the number 40 Acura, which is out on the circuit at the moment. Kamui Kobayashi turning his first laps of this session. There's been a number of the 61 cars who haven't come out to play this evening at all, which I'm very surprised at. No sign of the Proton number 5. That car was damaged earlier on. Didn't make qualifying either. Neither of the BMW M Hybrid V8s. Can we just out now for the first lap? So we've not seen the real Cadillac, Windtailor Racing, Huracan as well, so it's not just the prototypes who have eschewed the opportunities to nip out. Malte Jakobsen just improved to a 139.006 Club Stripe Racing by APR Oregon. So we're talking to the Oregon delegation down in catering. And Bart Hayden I'll take a little while, chat with him, so doing some work with Oregon. Fastest time then in LMP2. CrowdStrike from AF Corsa from Inter Europol. Brendan Hartley has just popped up as well in the last few minutes. They've ruled out number 10 Windtailor Racing Cadillac on 38.409 for the affable lanky Kiwi in the 5th position. And with 5 minutes to go. 5 minutes to go. Joe Bradley has corralled Ben Keating. And so that'll take us to the checkered flag, Joe.
Yeah, I've been looking for him all day. It's really hard to find people, Ben, with all of these closed off awnings for the right reasons, it's blooming freezing. Once again, not like you, not to challenge yourself, 2 cars. The TF Corvette is where we are at the moment. Tell us how this one is going so far.
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, the Corvette's really, really good, especially in these type of conditions. It's easy to drive, which makes it really good in tricky conditions. But everything is really good. I love working with TF. I love working with Trackhouse. You know, being in a car with Connor and Shane and Scotty Mack is an incredible experience. A lot of fun, and I'm just enjoying the experience. Luckily for me, the 52 LMP2 is just a couple of boxes down, so I get to go back and forth between the two of them. Of course, as a bronze driver, I had to qualify in both cars tonight, so I did 3 laps in the Corvette, and then I switched helmets and went to 3 laps in the LMP2. But yeah, so far so good.
I'm going to ask you a question, but first I need to tell you, the Matheson car, your car, just had a bit of an incident on the infield, but it's got going again. It might have been, I don't know exactly what, I'll find out for you. What I want to ask you, Ben, is when you transition between these 2 cars during the race, is there a given sort of set time that you give yourself to recover from the GT car before you get in the LMP car and vice versa?
So, I mean, the main thing for the race is just not violating the 4-hour and 6-hour rule. You know, no driver can do more than 4 hours of driving in any 6-hour period, and I'm responsible for making sure that doesn't happen for me personally with both cars combined. If I do that, then I disqualify both cars. So the easiest way to do that is to, if I get out of the car, as long as I'm out of the car for 2 hours, then I cannot violate the rule. And so for the race, I put on my old school 1980s Timex Ironman watch, and I start the chronograph when I get out of the car, and I just make sure I don't get back in the car until I've been out for 2 hours.
I'm putting my team manager head on, right? I've got a driver that has to be out of another car for 2 hours. I mean, all right, but I'm not saying you're a nightmare when you knock on the door of Tom's team here and likewise of Matheson. But it does take some managing, not just from your perspective, but also the teams. But they seem to love the challenge of running it.
Yeah, I think that
you're challenging, by the way.
I think the teams worry about it, but I do not. You know, the teams are all wound up that, oh, it's a big deal, we can't make any mistakes. And of course, I say, guys, it's going to be okay, just relax. So I'll start the race in the LMP2, and then I'll switch over to the Corvette, get my drive time done in the Corvette, and then finish my drive time in the LMP2 during the night.
I mean, there's no way that you can get mixed up with regards to braking points and reference points, because the cars are so different, aren't they? Your seating positions, when you get into that Corvette, there's no way that you can get mixed up.
Yeah, they're very, very different, but it still takes a lap or two to get used to, they remember how this one feels and where the brake points are and where the turn-in points are, and, it's different enough that you have to give yourself a couple laps before you really start pushing to make sure you're comfortable with each car as you get in it.
You're the master of it, Ben. I'm looking forward to your book. Have you thought about a book?
I'm looking forward to it as well.
Well, get on with it. I think your car has come into the pits.
Yeah. My car is in the pits. I don't know what happened, but we made it back.
Yeah. I'll see you in the race, Ben. Great to talk to you as ever. Ben Keating, what a character. What a character.
Matthias Besch in that car, Joe, and the problem was I think he looped it on cold tyres on his outlap, and he's come straight back in the PR1. Matheson, that's the number 52 Orica. Still the fastest time to Porsche Penske Motorsport, the number 7 of Nick Tandy. Kamui Kobayashi on his fourth flying lap has just put himself into second place in the Wayne Taylor Cadillac number 40. He literally came out for the glory laps at the end, just when I was taking over from Peter and JP. And also Brendan Hartley doing much the same thing. 137.0 for Kamui, 137.1 for Brendan. So the two Wayne Taylor Cadillacs coming out and turning 5 and 7 laps respectively at the end, as Malte Jakobsen in the crowd strike by APR number 04 goes even quicker, and that's the new top time in LMP2 with a 38.5, 1 minute 38.5. Check flag is out. We'll give you some times, although they stand for nothing. Give Nick and Joe possibly the opportunity to grab somebody down at Porsche. And the number 6 car's been in there for quite a long time, Mathieu Jaminet. And Brendan Hartley's improved again. And now it's 2 Cadillacs behind the Nick Tandy car. So 136.921, and Kobayashi's put exactly the same time in as Nick Tandy. Tandy did it first, so we'll head the timesheet, and 0.014 of a second behind in second, Brendan Hartley. So the top 3 cars separated by 0.014 of a second. 7 Porsche from the number 40 Cadillac for Wayne Taylor Racing, and then the number 10 car, the team car. Absolutely extraordinary right at the end there. 2/10 further back, the number 6 Porsche Penske Motorsport over the white pinstripes. Then Timon van der Helm for JDC Miller Motorsports, the other Porsche, number 85. And Kakuota for the Acura RX-06 in 6th position. Then the P2s. Crowd strike by a couple of seconds in the end from AF Corsa. No, check that, sorry, reading the wrong column, Hindhoff. That's the gap back to the leader. So, half a second from Malthy Jakobsen to Nicholas Nielsen. 0-4 CrowdStrike to 88 AF Corsa. Another tenth of a second back to into Europol in third. Tom Dillman in the car at the end there. And fourth position, United Autosports number 22, Paul de Resta was in that car as the checkered flag came out. GTD Pro 75 Express Mercedes AMG, Maro Engel was last in that car. From Dan Harper for Paul Miller Racing, the number 48, and Neil Verhagen, the number 1. The two BMW separated by just 0.022 of a second. And in GTD, best time going to the Corvette of AWA, Marvin Kirchhoffer, in the number 13, from another car of the same manufacturer. Yes, another private air Corvette. That's the Trackhouse car, a tenth of a second further back. Shane van Gisbergen was the last driver in that car. That's a GTD Pro car, of course. So second in GTD, Chetela's Ferrari, the light blue car, Roberto Lacorte in the 47 at the end. He was just over a tenth behind Marvin Kirchhoffer. And Inception Racing's Ferrari, Brendan Arib finished off the session there in the number 70. Another 3/10 further back. There's your top three in each class and a bit more. Quick final word from Nick Damon, who I think is still down in the pits. What are you seeing transpire, Nicholas? How are you seeing the evening going and the meeting going on as far as the atmosphere and the intensity of the teams and drivers?
Well, I think it's a good word, intensity, because I think it's the first time I've seen a session not really have any. Where it was the weather, where it was the cold, where the fact they've been here for a week, but this one was very much like an optional, wasn't it? Shall we? Nah, let's not bother, or perhaps we need to get a couple of laps on our silver drivers. Interestingly relaxed. I wonder whether that's going to make the hour session tomorrow morning all the more intense. But apart from that, I mean, we've had a very clean day. We've had one car with a minor bit of suspension damage, which is obviously always a plus point. A lot of people... Is
that car still being worked on, Nick?
I didn't see it, I'll be honest with you. I went down there. There were a number of cars which didn't turn up. I mean, the BMWs were trying to get the car that Sheldon van der Linde broke down in during qualifying out, but they obviously didn't quite manage. They wanted to run 2 or 3 laps this evening just for a systems check, but they didn't manage to do that, unfortunately. But there were a couple of other cars were just lounging about being built. They had the Whelen Caddock had no intention of going out. So some people who made quite long distance decisions. Probably they were thinking about maybe possibly not, and then they saw a bit of rain on the radar. I thought, no, we'll skip this one. We've done darkness driving last weekend. But I think it's interesting. We've got all the cars in position. Everyone's kind of practiced well. I think the qualifying again was slightly affected by the cold, and I kind of get I think we're going to have a massive intensity ramp from what I think actually was been, apart from the weather, been quite a pleasant, relaxed day, really.
Thanks, Nick, for all your hard work today, and to Ryan Marine as well, who's been in the booth and the pit lane. Joe Bradley, you get the final words. Qualifying's done and dusted. Tonight, okay, bit of an optional, as Nick said. I quite like that. The next 2 sessions that these cars have got, you've got to get a car that's balanced for the race on Saturday and Sunday. That's where the work's going to go, isn't it?
Yeah, and that tonight wasn't going to get you that at all, and I think it's I'm taking it as a positive that everyone was kind of sort of very casual about the night session. It tells me that everybody's happy with where their car is with regards to setups and systems checks. Tonight's session started wet and damp and quite horrible and quite treacherous, let's not forget. And you were never going to achieve anything if you were trying to find a balance. Tonight wasn't going to get you that. So I think we've run through a few checks. We've run through a few, bedding bricks and discs and pads. And it kind of bodes well. I think everybody's ready, aren't they? I think everybody's ready just to crack on with the race. And I think tomorrow, it'll be a bit of a shakedown systems check for everybody. The weather is going to change. It's going to get ever so slightly warmer, and by warmer, don't think warm. It's just going to raise the temperature by a few degrees. Overnight on Saturday into Sunday, it's going to be blooming freezing. I've seen a forecast of 2 degrees overnight. Not unprecedented recently.
Yeah.
We have. We had it minus, didn't we, about 3 years ago?
Certainly, it was sitting
and
in
we got
freezing
through that.
when I was in the BMW sleeping. Yes.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, that's the challenge, isn't it? The challenge is not just for the engineers, but certainly the drivers firsthand when they leave the pits, and the track becomes a little bit more treacherous. If it was easy, we'd be doing it. Wouldn't be holding this microphone, would we?
Well, you used to do it, let's not forget. Joe Bradley, Nick Damon, Ryan Marine in the pits, P. Mac, Peter Mackay and Johnny Palmer with me, John Hindorf, in the Ford Performance Global Broadcast Centre. We kick things off in the morning, where you'll first hear our voices. It's about 9:20 local time. Add 5 on for the UK, 6 for Europe. It's the third practice session for Michelin Challenge. All the qualifying is done now, and then we've got another Mazda race. It was finished under a caution today, unusually, so we'll have the second 45-minute race at about 10:15 at local time. Again, add 3 on, that's 3:15. Add 5 on, rather, 3:15 in the UK on Friday afternoon. Bit of Friday afternoon racing. Then the third practice for WeatherTech Championship comes along at 11:20 before we take a lunch break, and we set up for our Friday main event. It is the BMW M Endurance Challenge at Daytona for the Michelin Pilot Challenge. The 4-hour race will have some countdown to green for that round about 1:15 local time, and the green flag is 1:45. So that is how it looks tomorrow here on 107.9 FM and around the world on RS2. Thanks to Tim Gray, our producer in London, for putting us to the world, to everybody up at Concord, our partners at NASCAR Productions, and of course to Leah and the rest of the crew. Thanks, Mike. Thanks, Leah, for making sure that we were going out on 107.9 and around the circuit on the very efficient PA. Our studio producer was Christine, the responsible adult who is everywhere, even when she's not there, was Eve Hewitt. I'm John Hindorf, wishing you a very, very good evening. Stay warm, enjoy yourself, talk a load of nonsense about motor racing, put the world to rights, and start making some bold predictions about the 63rd running of the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona. And then you can laugh at yourself on Sunday afternoon when you got it right or got it wrong. Have a good evening. Good night.
Thanks to the guys there over at IMSA Radio as well. So we've got one more session coming your way. That is Free Practice 3. That's tomorrow, as John said. And then on Saturday and Sunday, we'll be live on JB Motorsports here on YouTube and Twitch, and on Downforce Radio this year as well. It's going to be very fun. A lot of good guests joining us in the commentary booth as well. Jake Sanson coming in, DJ Clark as well. We've got drivers. We've got our usual punditry team as well. A lot of new voices you're going to hear this year on JB Motorsports as we kick off our IMSA coverage alongside World Endurance. About 30 different championships we get to cover this season as well. It's going to be very much exciting. But look at that as well. Maximum times exactly the same over there in GTP. They are matched between them. Porsche and Cadillac, the same time going into tomorrow. It's going to be very, very exciting. Thanks for your company here today then as well. Yeah. From Daytona International Speedway, we've been delivered 2 practice sessions and a great quali. And if you watched it, a great Mazda race. We'll see you tomorrow for the final practice ahead of the 63rd running of the Daytona 24 Hours. Thanks for your company. We'll see you again tomorrow. Bye-bye.